The summary of the story of an hour. The story begins in the home of Brentley Mallard and Louise Mallard. Louise Mallard has heart trouble, so her sister Josephine is trying to break the news carefully about her husband's death. Richards, a friend of Louise's husband, found the railroad accident in the newspaper office and noticed Louise's husband, Brentley, on the list of those dead. With no moment of resistance, Louise begins to burst into tears and goes upstairs to be alone in her room. She retreats to her room alone, and soon her emotions calm. Then she watches through the open window, smelling the recent rain and seeing the spots blue coming through the clouds. She hears a street seller and birds chirping. Someone somewhere is singing. She is in the yacht with wrinkles around her eyes. She continues to cry as she casts her gaze into the darkness. She is fearful and cries but is unable to suppress the emotions that are going within her. She immediately begins repeating the word free to herself over and over again. Her heart beats quickly and she feels very warm. His hands were gentle. Meanwhile, she envisions the years ahead, which are all hers now, and gleefully stretches her arms out in anticipation. She will be independent, alone, and without oppression. She believes that all women and men oppress one another regardless of their motives. Louise is aware that she has frequently felt romantic feelings for Brentley, but convinces herself that none of it matters anymore. She is overjoyed at her newfound sense of independence. Josephine knocks on Louise's door, pleading with her to come out, warning her that she would become ill if she does not. Louise urges her to go. She daydreams about the days and years ahead and wishes for a long life. Then she opens the door and begins walking down the stair with Josephine, where Richard is waiting. The front door unexpectedly opens and Brentley comes in. He had not been involved in the train accident and was unaware that one had occurred. Josephine cries, and Richards attempts to prevent Louise from seeing her husband. The shock seeing him trigger Louise's heart condition, and she dies. Doctors arrive and say that Louise passed away from a heart attack caused by happiness. The Story of an Hour is a short story written by Kate Chopin on April 19, 1894. It was originally published in Vogue on December 6, 1894 as The Dream of an Hour. Characters and analysis of the story. Louise Mallard. Louise Mallard is the protagonist. Chopin informs the audience at the beginning that Louise is suffering from heart trouble, and the reader realizes her actual emotions about her life and her husband's death. From that statement alone, we know that she is married, has a heart condition, and is likely to react strongly to the bad news. We also know that the person who is sharing the bad news views Louise as delicate and sensitive. Throughout the next few paragraphs, we also learn that Louise is a housewife. Author uses Louise to criticize the oppressive and repression nature of marriage, especially when Louise rejoices in her newfound freedom. The next character is Josephine. Josephine is Louise's sister. Josephine informs Louise about Bentley's death, especially worried about her sister's heart condition. Josephine is the key supporting character for Louise, helping her mourn, though she never knows that Louise found new freedom from her husband's supposed death. The next and the most influencing character is Bentley Mallard. Bentley Mallard is represented only by his wife. He remains as a silent character in this story. Louis, who uses the term oppression and a great will bending her, but also love, Bentley's part in Louise's life, impacting her outlook on maintaining an imprisoned life. The next character is Richard. Richard is a friend of Bentley Mallard, who brings the news of Bentley's death in a train accident. Richard's primary role in the story of an hour is to initiate the plot. Richard's appearance in the newspaper office implies that he is a writer, editor, or other employee of the newspaper, though Chopin leaves this interpretation to the reader's choice. Now let's see the in-depth analysis of the short story, The Story of an Hour. The protagonist is Louise Mallard, whose feeling discloses to the reader her actual views about her life after her husband's death. The story revolves around her own self-talk and brief utterance of her thoughts. The main themes of the story are marriage's internal oppressiveness. Author Kate Chopin urges that all marriages, even the most loving, are oppressive. Louise, who openly admits that her husband was kind and caring, reveals at his death. Louise knows she will cry during Brantley's burial despite her reaction. Despite their love, Louise saw Brantley's death as a freedom from oppression. She never specifies how Brantley oppressed her, instead implying that marriage oppresses both women and men. Louise's insight illustrates the oppressiveness of all marriages, which deprive people of their independence. Besides that, the mysterious joy of freedom that can be conceived privately is another major theme of the short story. When Louise heard of Bentley's death from Josephine, she reacts with apparent grief. And while her reaction is perhaps more compelling than that most of that woman, however, when Louise is alone, she comes to terms with the fact that she is now an independent woman, a reality that energizes and delights her. Despite the fact that these are her private thoughts, she initially attempts to smother her excitement, to drive it back with her will. Such resistance demonstrated how really prohibited this pleasure is. When she finally acknowledges delight, she feels possessed by it and is driven to submit to it as the word free. Louise's life provides no refuge for this kind of delight, and the rest of society will never understand or accept it. Louise has had a taste of this temptation as just a result of unusual circumstances, and her views are also harsh. Then she views her existence as completely hers, as her newly acquired independence, as the very essence of her being. Louise, overwhelmed, even prays, wishing for a long life in order to appreciate this sensation. When Bentley returns, he unintentionally jerks Louise's freedom from her, leaving it out of reach once again. The forbidden thrill disappears as rapidly as it arrived, but the taste is enough to kill her. Now, let's evaluate two main quotes from the short story, The Story of an Hour. The first one is, "But now there was a dull stare in her eyes, whose gaze was fixed away off under on one of those patches of blue sky. It was not a glance of reflection, but rather indicates a suspension of intelligent thought." Explanation: Louise has gone to her room alone to deal with the news of Bentley's death. Louise stares out her window at the wide open space below. The quote hints that Louise's reaction to Bentley's death will be unexpected and that she is unlike other women. Louise's glance indicates something different, something shrewder or more active. What she sees as she looks out the window is unlike what other widowed ladies perceive. Louise soon recognizes the wonderful sense of independence Bentley's death has brought her. These sentiments are staring at the window, and her intelligent thought will swiftly re-engage as she analyzes and analyzes them. The second quote is, "She breathed a quick prayer that life might be long. It was only yesterday," she had thought with a shudder, "that life might be long." This quote appears near the end of the story, right before Louise leaves her bedroom to go downstairs, and it shows how happy Louise was. Before Bentley died, Louise feared a life of dependence and oppression. She thought of years of dull, unchanging dependence and oppression. In the way she felt, the shudder she felt was one of the dread. It's different now.